Mountain Power for authority to increase its retail electric utility service rates in Utah and for approval of its proposed electric service schedules and electric service regulations. At this point, we're ready to go to Ms. Baldwin for her witness on behalf of Walmart Incorporated.
Thank you very much. Walmart calls Mr. Steve Crisp to the stand. Mr. Crisp, could you please state your name for the record and spell your last name?
My name is Steve W. Crisp, C-H-R-I-S-S.
And could the witness please be sworn?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Crisp. Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Crisp, on August 20th, Walmart filed direct testimony by you, and then also on that day, Walmart filed errata by you. Do you have those in front of you?
I do.
Okay. Could you tell me if you have any corrections to those?
The errata took care of the correction that we had on the initial filing.
And if I were to ask you the same questions that are contained therein, would you answer the questions the same as you would at that time?
Yes.
And was this testimony prepared by you or at your direct supervision?
Yes.
Commissioner, Walmart requests that the direct testimony of Mr. Steve Crisp, the errata direct testimony of Mr. Steve Crisp, and the associated exhibits SWC 1 through 4 be admitted to the record.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baldwin. If any party objects to that motion, please unmute yourself and state your objection. I'm not seeing or hearing any objections, so the motion is granted. Thank you.
Mr. Crisp, have you prepared a summary of your testimony today?
I have.
Could you please proceed with that?
Yes. Good morning, Chairman LeVar and Commissioners. I'm testifying today on behalf of Walmart, Inc., and the purpose of my testimony is to respond to Rocky Mountain Power's rate case filing and to provide recommendations to assist the Commission in its thorough and careful consideration of the customer impact of the company's proposed rate increase. Electricity is a significant operating cost for retailers such as Walmart. When electric rates increase, the increased cost to retailers can put pressure on consumer prices and on the other expenses required by a business to operate. The Commission should thoroughly and carefully consider the impact on customers in examining the requested revenue requirement and ROE, in addition to all other facets of this case, to ensure that any increase in the company's rates is the minimum amount necessary to provide safe, adequate, and reliable service, while also providing RMP the opportunity to recover its reasonable and prudent costs and earn a reasonable return on its investment. Walmart's recommendations to the Commission are as follows. The Commission should closely examine the company's proposed revenue requirement increase and the associated proposed increase in ROE, especially when viewed in light of the customer impact of the resulting revenue requirement increase, the proposed use of a future test year, which reduces regulatory lag and therefore utility risk, by allowing the utility to include projected cost increases in its rates at the time they will be in effect, and recent rate case ROEs approved by commissions nationwide. In summary, unless the Commission determines that RMP has sufficiently and substantially demonstrated that the company requires an ROE greater than its currently approved ROE of 9.8%, which is generally consistent with recent Commission decisions and national trends, the Commission should approve an ROE no higher than 9.8% in this docket. And that concludes my summary.
Thank you. Mr. Crisp is available for questioning.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Schmidt, do you have any questions on behalf of the Division of Public Utilities?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions from the Office of Consumer Services?
No, I had no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Russell, do you have any questions for this witness?
No questions for Mr. Crisp. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sliger, I hope I'm saying your name right. Do you have any questions for this witness?
That is correct. And thank you, Chair. No, we have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boehm? I am not sure he's with us this morning. So I'll move on to Mr. Moskin or Mr. Saban. Do either of you have questions for this witness?
Just very brief questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go
Can you
ahead.
hear us okay?
I can see and hear you clearly.
Wonderful. Miracles never cease. So, Mr. Chris, good morning. Just very quickly, in your, I'll just cite to your errata testimony, but I'll refer to it as your direct testimony. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. In your direct testimony, you cite to data from the S&P Global Market Intelligence report. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And that covers a period of 2017 through up through the middle part of 2020. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you state that the average ROE for in that report for all electric and gas utilities is 9.6%. Is that right?
Yes, line 130 of my testimony. Is that to where you're referring?
That is. Thank you very much. Yeah. And you also note that the range of ROEs extends from a high of 11.95% to a low of 8.25%, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you go on in your testimony to note that some of the reported ROEs are for distribution-only utilities or utility distribution service rates only. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct.
And you agree with me, I take it, that Rocky Mountain Power is not a distribution-only utility or we're not dealing with service rates only in this case?
That's correct. I do agree with you on that.
Okay. In your testimony, you use the S&P Global Market Intelligence information to run a calculation of the average authorized ROEs for just vertically integrated utilities, correct?
That's correct.
And as I understand your testimony, in doing that, you removed all authorized ROEs for distribution-only utilities or utility distribution rate service rates only, right?
That's correct.
And am I correct in assuming that you did that because distribution-only utilities and distribution service rates are quite different from vertically integrated utility rate matters?
Yes, distribution rates only cover the distribution wires portion of service. There's a little give or take, but for the most part, the generation portion of service is not included in the utilities rates, either sort of whole cost for the states where the utilities don't own generation, or for a state like Ohio where generation rates are set separately from a distribution rate case.
Right, thank you. And in your testimony, you go through the effort of removing the rate case results for distribution-only utilities or for utility distribution service rates and develop through that analysis an ROE for just the remaining vertically integrated utilities from 2017 to 2020, right?
That's correct.
And by my understanding is that when you do that, you come up with an average for vertically integrated utilities of 9.73%, correct?
That's correct.
And you, in your testimony, you state that, and this is line 141 of your testimony, I believe, it says that you represent that that average has remained relatively stable over those 4 years.
I mean, there's been a general decline, but it was sort of within the broader, if you look at the 8.25 to 11.95 as sort of your absolute bottom to absolute top, it is relatively stable, going from 9.8 in 2017 to 9.64 so far in 2020.
Okay, and the results of your analysis are in fact arrive at the same number as Ms. Bulkley's when she calculates the data for average ROEs over that same. Let me back up. She does a similar analysis from January 2018 through August of 2020. Do you have any understanding of that?
I'd have to refresh my recollection of the specifics around it, but my understanding is that she has used the S&P data to conduct some analyses. Okay,
and just to save time, let me represent to you that on page 9 of her rebuttal testimony, she takes similar data from January 2018 to August 2020, does a vertically integrated only analysis of the same kind you did, and she comes up with a range from 8.75 to 10.5%. If you want to refer there, I'm happy to take you there. I just trying to save time, but are you?
I
accept that?
I have the same
check?
S&P data set in front of me, so I can generally represent that that makes sense based on. I'm looking at my exhibit SWC3, which has the whole data set from 2017 through 2020. So,
Okay.
Your representation is within my general understanding.
Yeah, and I'll just represent again as well that on line 190 of her rebuttal testimony, after she calculates the average and the median, she comes up with an ROE average of 9.69% and a median of 9.73, which is the same number you came up with, right?
Yeah, those sound about right.
And she points out that 47 out of the 63 decisions, or more than a majority during that period of time, have fallen within a range of 9.5% up to 10.5%. Do you have any reason to dispute that?
I don't necessarily dispute the numbers. I would need to look more closely at how she sets the range, just because it sounds a little bit asymmetrical. But without having the testimony in front of me, I can't do that this time. But that would be my only thought about just what checks would I prefer, would I do. That's what I would do, because we're cutting off the bottom end, but it doesn't necessarily sound like we're cutting off the top end.
Well, no, I'm just telling you, so she's taking, I'm not saying she's cut off a top or bottom. This is on 192 and 193. I'll just read you from her, unless you have her rebuttal testimony there.
I don't. If you give me a second, I can pull it up. I just have to.
Sure, I'll just go ahead and pull it up, and you can refer to page 10 if you'd like.
All right. So to confirm, okay, page 10 of Ann Berkeley's rebuttal.
Yeah.
Okay, with the chart at the top, 191. Okay, I'm there.
You see that first, you see the chart at the top that shows authorized ROEs from 2018 to the present?
I do.
And then first, starting on line 192, as shown in figure 2, the large majority of authorized returns for integrated electric utilities, open paren, 47 out of 63 decisions, close paren, from 2018 through August 2020 have been between 9.5% and 10.5%. You see that?
I do.
Do you agree with me that, at least as it reflects on her chart, that the majority of those decisions, in fact, do appear above 9.5% and go up to a high of 10.5%?
And that's what her figure is representing. As you look at the scatter plot, ultimately the bulk of stuff, decisions, fall between really 9.25 and 10. There are 4 decisions that come in above 10.0, and then it looks like 2 decisions below 9.25. So if it were me making a general statement around the bulk of decisions, I myself would frame it between 9.25 and 10, not between 9.5 and 10.5.
Well, I don't mean to quibble with you, but if I look at the chart and I look down towards 9.25, there's only a handful of decisions, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or so decisions that I can see that are that low. Everything else is above that. You agree with that?
Well, so if we're, yeah, I mean, it depends on where you want to set your outlier point. You know, there appears to be two outliers sitting under the 9.25 level, labeled as Mr. Coleman's recommendation, and a couple sitting right on it. And then there's 4 outliers sitting above 10%. So even if you struck the 9.25, you know, just to have the equal number of outliers on both sides of the chart, you'd still have quite a few that are 9.5 and below. With, I mean, the bulk are basically sitting around that 9.8 average, but there's certainly a heavier bias below that than there is above that.
Right, and go back to my original question. Do you have any reason to disagree that 47 out of 63 of the decisions end up at 9.5 or higher?
I don't disagree with the statement. I just leave it to the commission to determine the weight of that statement. That's all.
I understand. I appreciate it. Okay, let's move on. In your testimony, you agree, I believe, that 9.8%, which is what the company is requesting here, falls well within the range of ROEs for integrated utilities, right?
Yeah, it's above the average, but it's not. You know, it's 70 basis points above the average.
Yeah, and you agree at the end of your testimony that 9.8 that's generally consistent with the trend of commission decisions and of this commission's decisions and national trends, right?
Yeah, it's generally within that range.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Saban. Ms. Baldwin, do you have any redirect for Mr. Chris?
No redirect.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baldwin. Then I will go to Commissioner Clark. Do you have any questions for Mr. Chris?
I don't have any questions. I want to thank Mr. Chris for appearing, and particularly for Walmart's substantial business presence in Utah. I appreciated learning more about that in your testimony. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, and we're very happy to be able to serve in the state.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Allen, do you have any questions for Mr. Chris?
Thank you, but I have no questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And I don't have any. So, Mr. Chris, thank you for your participation in our hearing and for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Anything further from your client, Ms. Baldwin?
No, I believe that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything further from anyone on this phase of the docket? Okay, with that, I think we're concluded with the cost of capital portion of this rate case. We will reconvene on Tuesday, November 3rd, for the beginning of the hearing to deal with revenue requirement and also the depreciation docket. Those have both been rolled into next week's hearings. We'll remind everyone that we have a public witness hearing beginning at 5 p.m. on Tuesday also. Because of the virtual nature of that hearing, we have requested that anyone who wishes to provide public comments email the Public Service Commission at the email address provided in the notice and make an appointment. We had set today as the deadline for making an appointment for that. At this point, the list of presenters is very short, so we're unless we receive more today, we're not expecting a long hearing Tuesday evening. But I just wanted to remind everyone that today is the deadline for that. And with that, we are adjourned today. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.